Let's jump right into today's explainer because we are unpacking the truly terrifying reality of how an awkward early internet creator descended into unspeakable real-world violence. We're looking at the case of Trey Eric Sessler. Online, to his followers, he was known as Mr. Anime. On the surface, he was just this seemingly harmless reviewer and short film creator. But underneath that digital mask, a completely different, incredibly dark reality was taking shape. Today, we're going to walk through the timeline, the psychology, and the deeply disturbing events that culminated in a tragedy that literally shook a small Texas community to its core.
We actually start with this absolutely chilling premonition. A neighbor of the Sesslers saw right through that online persona, sensing something was deeply, deeply wrong. After Trey bragged about pointing a sniper rifle across the street, that neighbor said he was menacing, evil, and crooked. And then, pairing perfectly with that, is a dark confession from Trey himself, admitting there wasn't a day that went by where he didn't think about killing someone. It's a terrifying dichotomy, right? And it perfectly sets the stage for the horrors authorities would discover on March 20th, 2012.
Section 1. A horrifying discovery.
When Waller, Texas authorities conducted what was supposed to be a routine welfare check at the Sessler family home, they walked into a literal nightmare. Now keep in mind, this was a house that was familiar to thousands of viewers as the innocent, quirky backdrop for YouTube anime reviews. But the grim reality was that the very rooms once used to stage fictional short films were now the sites of real, unspeakable carnage. In the garage, an older woman was found in her blood-soaked pajamas. Curled on the floor of the hallway bathroom lay a young man. And in a bedroom, an older man was found still in his bed. All three victims had sustained multiple gunshot wounds. And practically every room in the house reflected a violent, chaotic outburst.
Section 2. The rise of Mr. Anime.
To really understand how this massacre happened, we have to rewind. We need to go back way before the bloodshed to explore the inception of the person responsible for the whole thing, 17-year-old Trey Eric Sessler. Back in 2006, which is long before the age of modern, highly polished influencers, Trey carved out a niche in YouTube's early days. He created a channel called Lindcat Productions and just started uploading anime reviews and short amateur films. He presented this seemingly innocent, if a bit awkward persona to his viewers. His audience essentially had a front row seat to his life, but they had absolutely no idea they were also witnessing a slow, disturbing descent into madness.
Over the years, his viewers started noticing a really unsettling shift in his demeanor and his content. The staged, fictional violence in his videos began taking on a much darker, much more obsessive edge. He actually transitioned from enthusiastically reviewing anime to casually blowing up couches with a 9mm pistol on camera. The mask of the quirky reviewer was slipping, right? And underneath, it was revealing a very real obsession with firearms and pure destruction.
Section 3. Escalating red flags.
The warning signs mapped out a terrifying deterioration. I mean, at just 13 years old, he shot at his brother Mark with a CO2-powered BB gun and then actually pulled it on a responding police officer. By April 2009, he was taking breaks from anime to rant online about school shootings. Fast forward to August 2010, he moves to Hempstead and starts exhibiting extreme paranoia. He literally rigged a shotgun to his ceiling fan, pointed right at his front door. And by December 2011, he was reporting severe health issues, shortness of breath, and an inability to sleep. The cracks in his sanity were widening right in front of everyone. Now, what's absolutely crucial to understand here is how clinical his obsession became. Investigators discovered a chilling research paper on his laptop where he studied notorious serial killers. But get this, he wasn't just reading about them, he was grading them. He graded their chosen weapons on this twisted 1 to 10 scale, based on maximum damage capabilities. So he gave a shooter like Kip Kinkle a low score for using a .22 rifle, but he highly rated Charles Whitman, the University of Texas sniper. Why? Because Whitman's high-powered weapons were necessary to commit what Trey called maximum damage.
And as is so often the case in these tragedies, his violence escalated from animals to humans. He matter-of-factly told investigators he took a lost Doberman to a secluded road, strapped it into his car seat, and shot it. He completely destroyed his own kitten with a 20-gauge shotgun, and his reason? Simply because he was in a bad mood. He even contemplated shooting cows in a pasture just to see what a high-velocity rifle would do to them. This kind of horrifying brutality toward animals is a classic, glaring psychological warning sign.
Section 4. The night of the murders. This brings us to the weekend of the tragedy. While most news reports focus on Tuesday, March 20th, the nightmare actually began on Sunday, March 18th, and the catalyst was terrifyingly mundane. While visiting his family in Waller, Trey accidentally discharged a .22 rifle into his bed. But no one in the house reacted. They didn't hear it. And that horrific realization planted itself in his mind right then and there. He could shoot a firearm inside his own house entirely unnoticed.
Later that very same night, after driving home to Hempstead and drinking, he made the fateful decision to return to his family's house. And in his taped confession, his detachment is just chilling. He lured his 57-year-old mother, Rhonda, into the garage under the guise of looking at a dent on his car bumper. And as she walked past him, he picked up that .22 rifle and murdered her. The nightmare just escalated from there. After shooting his mother, he went and grabbed a 9mm Glock loaded with hollow point rounds. His 58-year-old father, Lawton, who was half asleep in bed, heard the noise and tried to sit up. Trey just ran right into the bedroom and shot his father directly, leaving him dead on the bed. His older brother, 26-year-old Mark, had actually intercepted Trey in the hallway earlier and fled to the family bathroom, desperately locking himself inside. Trey shot through the door repeatedly before physically blowing out the deadbolt. He kicked the door open to find his brother lying in a pool of blood, and his only clinical thought in that moment was, "I guess that's got him."
What happens next honestly defies all logic. Claiming he didn't want them to suffer, Trey retraced his steps through the house, shooting his already deceased family members again, this time with an AR-15. He then just went into this chaotic frenzy. He was throwing over bookshelves, shooting the television, knocking family pictures off the walls. He maliciously executed the family's pet finches, their ferret, and even blew out a 20-gallon fish tank. Amidst all this destruction, what he himself called a cloud of death, he scrawled these conflicting, desperate apologies across the drywall. Section 5, Aftermath and Confession.
150. I really want you to remember that number. That is the amount of rounds of AR-15 ammunition Trey had loaded in his car. On Monday afternoon, heavily armed and drinking beer, he parked his Mustang in the lot of Waller Junior High School. He literally sat there, watching the flood of students at dismissal, actively contemplating a mass shooting. He told investigators, "There's my opportunity, go ahead, go get them."
Thankfully, miraculously, he didn't pull the trigger. He claimed what had happened at his house was too real, so he just drove away, leaving the school entirely unaware of how narrowly they had escaped a full-blown massacre. He ended up at his friend Casey's house. When heavily armed police surrounded the home the next evening, Trey initially walked outside with a loaded Glock right in his hand. But realizing his friend Casey was standing right next to him and would almost certainly be killed in the crossfire, Trey finally abandoned the weapon in the grass and surrendered peacefully. Now, this moment captures the absolute terror of Trey's psychology perfectly. On Easter Sunday, his Aunt Liz visited him in jail. In this sweet, reassuring voice, he told her, "Aunt Liz, I just want you to know that they did not suffer." And then, instantly, his voice dropped to this sinister, cold tone, and he added, "I made sure of that." It perfectly encapsulates the dual nature of the mask and the monster. When detectives finally pressed him on the why his loving mother, his father, and his brother, Trey offered this completely inadequate, truly baffling explanation. He blamed it on a buildup of exposure to violence from the animals he'd killed, and coldly stated his family were simply targets of opportunity. He admitted the act wasn't even some long-standing fantasy, but rather a premeditated decision he made just 30 to 60 minutes before he actually pulled the trigger. Which brings us to the legal conclusion of this grim explainer. 22-year-old Trey Eric Sessler was charged with 3 counts of capital murder. He pled guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. When reached for an interview in 2024, he declined, stating the memories are best left alone. But oddly enough, his digital footprint outlasted his victims. His YouTube channel actually remained active for 8 years. It was finally taken down in 2020, but then mysteriously reinstated, standing as this incredibly eerie digital monument to a killer. And that leaves us with a really heavy question to ponder based on everything we've looked at today. With so many escalating red flags, from the extreme animal cruelty to the intense paranoid behavior, if the digital mask of Mr. Anime had been stripped away sooner, could the tragedy of Trey Sessler have been prevented? Or, given his clinical obsession with violence and maximum damage, was this tragedy always inevitable? It's a dark separation between online personas and real-world horrors that we absolutely must continue to critically examine. Thank you for joining me for this explainer.